Hello and welcome to stage 6 of the Giro Rosa as we bring you daily highlights here at Vox Women in partnership with Trek. Well, today lies ahead the individual time trial after what proved to be an epic day in the mountains yesterday. Ponte in Valtellina was the starting point for this year's Queen stage in the Giro Rosa 2019. A long day of climbing awaited the riders as they signed on at the start. Kasia Niewiadoma of Canyon SRAM was still in pink as the peloton rolled out, but everything was expected to change on the road to the mountain top finish. Two riders managed to break clear of a much reduced lead group as they came to the bottom of the final climb. Then, as expected, Annemiek van Vleuten attacked and left the field behind. The Mitchelton Scott rider soon passed the breakaway and just kept going. It was an amazing display from the defending champion as she came into the finish area over 2 minutes ahead and hardly out of breath. As she was warming down, the fight for second was hotting up. Lucinda Brandt of Team Sunweb won the race to the line, with Kasia Niewiadoma doing everything she could to hold on to the pink jersey in third. Amalia Rosa is now on the back of the #1 rider, Annemiek van Vleuten, who has a lead of 2 minutes and 16 seconds going into today's individual time trial.
Yeah, I knew that I had to attack from the bottom to gain as much as time, but it was 10 kilometers, epic suffering. It's yeah, my dream to wear the pink, and especially in Italy is very special, and yeah, it's a very big goal for me this year, and I'm super happy to that I could finally use my legs today and attack. So it was a bit waiting game, but today I could use them.
Then Annemiek went and everybody was like, okay, the alien is gone, now the race for the human being begins.
And alongside me for the first time at this year's Giro Rosa is double Olympic champion Joanna Rousel. Thank you so much. Hello. And what have you been up to? Because I know you've been very, very busy since retiring from bike racing.
Yes, I'm now officially a full-time student, very much a mature student. So I finished year 2 of my degree in human biology at Manchester Met. So all my exams are done for the year, for end of year 2. So yeah, busy being a student, also trying to keep fit as well, and enjoying sort of keeping within the cycling world as much as I can.
Yeah, and in terms of that, how closely have you followed the first opening stages up until where we're at this year's Giro?
It's been so good to have the highlights each night and just be able to watch that, like on my phone on the go and stuff as well. So really enjoyed the first few days. Obviously I enjoy team time trials and time trialing because that was sort of my background, but a couple of days ago when Vos won on the uphill finish and she sort of came out of nowhere and got Lucy Kennedy on the line, I felt so sorry for her, but it was just a spectacular win by Vos, and it was great to watch, and it made for really good TV to see her just come from nowhere, and you just keep watching replays thinking, that can't have happened, how did that happen? And it wasn't until you could watch it a few more times that you could really appreciate it. And I think that's what's so good about having the coverage, that if you just saw that as a list of results, you'd say, oh, Vos won, that's good, you know, that finish probably suited her. But actually the way it unfolded in that last, what, 100 metres, 200 metres? It was so close, and I love races like that, so that was brilliant to watch.
It was phenomenal, wasn't it? And I guess you were as surprised as we were, because it really looked to Kennedy and to everybody else that she'd got that. But Vos is just such a beautiful sprinter to watch as well.
She is, and she's so passionate, and I love when she wins, it's almost like it's her first ever bike race win, and the way she celebrates and the way she's got the emotion and everything at the finish, and I think that's great to watch, especially for someone that I know has obviously won so much throughout her career. It's not for her like a sort of ticking box part of the process, yeah, done that, you know, won a race. It's still such a huge excitement for her, and I think that passion really comes across on the TV as well. So it was great to see that. It was heartache for Lucy Kennedy though to see that happen, because I genuinely thought she had it. You know, yeah. She had such a gap, and when she looked back, you know, you'd think she had that, but the speed that Vos came up that hill was just incredible. Yeah,
it was absolutely spectacular. Now, looking to yesterday and some of the reactions to that huge attack and massive time gap for Van Vleuten. We heard Elisa Longo-Borghini there saying that this is almost now the race behind for the mere mortals and the humans. It was an expected day, wasn't it? We did think, right, that Queen stage is where we're expecting the defending champion to go.
Yeah, definitely. We know Annemiek van Vleuten has prepared really specifically for this race. She's made no secret of the fact she's been training at altitude and, you know, quite close to this area as well. So I think that stage had her name all over it. And actually that means there's a lot of pressure on her because everyone's expecting her to win and she's got to deliver it. And the thing with bike racing is you can do all the correct preparation, eat all the right foods, get the right sleep, do everything perfectly, but sometimes your legs just say no. And sometimes they just give up on the day. So I think for her to execute that performance was obviously really important. And yeah, perhaps it wasn't a surprise to some people, but I think nothing's ever certain in cycling. And your body does what it wants sometimes. Your legs, sometimes they just say no, sometimes they say yes. And yeah, yesterday was brilliant for her. But I think Elisa Longo-Borghini's right that there is going to be quite an interesting race behind for the other podium positions. And I think the win, you know, like it's definitely not a foregone conclusion. We've still got a lot of racing to come, absolutely. But she has got a huge gap, and it does actually make it possibly more interesting for second and third because there's quite small time gaps as you go further back down the GC, and there's a lot to play for because at the end of the day, a podium at the Giro is a huge achievement for anybody. You know, it's the only women's Grand Tour that we've got left. There's been a couple of stage races that have gone over the years, and this race seems to expand each year with its coverage and its sort of prestige. So for anyone else trying to get a podium spot, very much all to play for.
All to play for, and today, of course, we're coming into a very uphill time trial yet again. Van Vleuten, you know, we know how well she can time trial, but there's a lot of interest there in people making a good showing today.
Yes, so Van Vleuten, world time trial champion, national time trial champion, leader of this race. She's got a choice of jersey she could be wearing, but of course she'll be in the pink leader's jersey for this. But again, like you say, I think other people, in general, in the race calendar, there isn't many opportunities to race a time trial, you know, relatively compared to the amount of road racing. So for anybody that does want to perhaps gain selection for the World Championships for the time trial this year in Yorkshire or for the Olympics next year, any opportunity to time trial against the best in the world is an opportunity to show yourself. And for some selectors, for some nations, they might be thinking only about potential medalists. Other people might be thinking who are our best, you know, our best two or our best three from our nations. So you can sort of get races within races. So for a lot of people, this could be quite an important time trial to sort of showcase what they've got, really.
Well, we caught up with some of the riders earlier on. Let's hear it from them now.
Yeah, it's really special to race in Italy. I love it, and because many people know me, and I see the warmth of the people cheering for me, and always saying Forza Elisa, which is for me super nice. So thank you, Italy, for this.
So it's a time to relax and then focus for the TTs because it's a really important day for the GC, and also because it's so hard to do. For me, I never been like a time trialist, so it's a hard day. So I need to do everything perfect and to really focus in the TT.
A time trial is always pretty much the strongest one win. This might suit a couple of the mountain riders a bit more who normally wouldn't be as good at a flat time trial, but because this is going constantly uphill, they will have good times. I mean, you know, after yesterday, we know Annemiek van Vleuten is going to be really hard to beat, but I think Elisa will be in a good run there and can hopefully gain some time on her competitors towards the podium at the end of the race.
Yeah, of course, I'm really excited after yesterday. I'm happy about the results of yesterday and about my feelings. I hope today I could do a good result also in this time trial, even if I'm not a team trialist, but it's a climb one, so for sure for me it's better than a flat one.
Brilliant to hear from a couple of the riders there from WNT Rosa, and Erica Magnaldi in particular. A big attack from her yesterday.
Yeah, so for a rider like her, obviously really enjoys the climbs, but I think in women's cycling as a whole, we don't have many days like yesterday. You know, obviously in the men's peloton, you've got Grand Tours with big mountain stages. In the women's peloton, we see a lot of races with sort of 1 and 2K climbs, obviously all the Commonwealth Classics, and obviously we do have hilly races, but there's not many as big and as iconic as yesterday. So for her, it was great opportunity to sort of showcase her ability, to attack, to mix things up. And yeah, it wasn't a podium place for her yesterday, but I'm looking forward to seeing how she progresses, how she races over the course of the whole 10 days, and also in general how the women's sport sort of progresses over the next few years. And hopefully we'll see more big stages like that, because personally I enjoy watching the women's peloton race on stages like that, and it's great seeing riders like her have the opportunity to, you know, really attack and mix things up and get involved.
Certainly is, and it's brilliant to see that progression in the women's peloton, as you say there, Joanna. And talking of which, the Cyclist Alliance are working hard behind the scenes to support riders in today's peloton and also look to secure their future after cycling.
We are seeing a much higher level of the women's peloton in the races. So the races are harder, they're faster, and it's taking a lot more to be at the top of women's cycling. So everybody now has a coach, has a nutritionist. They're looking at all those 1%ers, and I think that those resources that are being put into the teams, like you know, around the cyclists, and the teams are having an approach a lot more like the men's teams, with coaches and with logistics and with equipment and with research and development, aerodynamics, and nutrition and training and all of these things, and it's really lifting the level of women's cycling. So that's really exciting for us as a sport.
Great progression there from the Cyclists Alliance, and great to hear from the riders on what they think of the work they're doing as well in the peloton. How important is that support when you're making that transition from a life of pro cycling into something quite different?
I think it's really important, and I think the Cyclists Alliance is doing great work across the board in all the sort of things that they're doing. Definitely as an elite athlete, you spend years dedicating your life to your sport, and you don't really think about the life beyond that, and it's very easy to be thinking about the here and now and the next race coming up, or your contract for the next year, and all those sort of basic things. But actually there is going to be a life after sport. You're going to need a second career. So I think having that support while you're an athlete is key, because otherwise you could, your career could end, out of your hands if you have an injury or something that stops you racing, and suddenly what you're going to do next. So definitely for me, the transition away from being an elite athlete has been difficult in some ways, been exciting in other ways. I was lucky that I ended my career on my own terms, but a lot of people aren't as lucky as that, and definitely the world of women's cycling, teams have come and gone over the years, and you can very quickly lose your job. So it is really important to think about that future and to support riders that are currently dedicating their life to their sport, but actually what is going to come next after that.
Joanna, thank you. And now let's take a look at everything that unfolded out on the road for stage 6 here at the Giro Rosa and the individual time trial. Stage 6, the individual time trial from Giro to Tailio here at the 30th edition of the Giro Rosa. Having a look now at that general classification, Annemiek van Vleuten after a stunning day on the Queen's stage on that summit finish, just putting in a very significant time gap as predicted to her rivals. Beautiful scenes yet again as we embark on another stage of this year's race. A little glimpse of what lies ahead with that time trial, and alongside me in commentary today, I'm delighted to have double Olympic champion Joanna Russell.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, Jo. I know you've been following very, very closely, so it's brilliant to have you alongside me. This course starts off pretty flat, pretty fast, and then just once again ramps up and up.
Yeah, it's a tough course for a time trial, and I think there will be a few riders probably hoping that today was going to be a slightly easier day compared to the rest of the race. Obviously, when you're racing in the heat every day for 3+ hours, it's nice to have a shorter stage where you can ride at your own pace. But it is a tough course, and anyone that is out there thinking they'll take it a bit easy and just try and stay in the time limits, it's not going to be easy for them. And definitely for the main contenders as well, a real chance to sort of either cement their position or try and make some gains if they didn't have such a good day yesterday. This could shake up the GC quite a lot as well, especially in some of the lower places. We've got some quite small time gaps between riders. This is a chance to sort of get a bit of gap over those people.
Well, just getting a sight here of that start ramp and our early starters going off earlier today. Looking at the jerseys coming into today, Juliette Labou wears that white jersey of the youth competition, Elisa Longo Borghini in the blue, and it is our race leader, Annemiek van Vleuten, that you mentioned earlier, Joe, that she has a lot of options in what jerseys she wears today. Of course, she will be in that very coveted pink Maglia Rosa. But she is indeed leading the points classification, the queen of the mountains classification, and the overall race.
And she's also the world champion and the national champion for time trial for Holland as well. So that's 2 more jerseys that she's technically entitled to wear in an individual time trial. So perhaps a shame in a way that we're not going to see the rainbow stripes, but obviously for her this week, that pink jersey is what it's all about.
And it's so, so special, that Maglia Rosa, to have that on your shoulders. It means so much to everybody that dons that jersey.
Yeah, this is the biggest stage race in women's cycling. It's an obviously iconic race in Italy, and we all know about the men's Giro d'Italia and the pink jersey, so to have a women's version is obviously really prestigious, and everyone wants to be able to win it, and obviously for Annemiek van Vleuten as well, to be able to defend it as well. That's a big thing. I think in sport in general, winning something once is good and it's impressive, but defending any sort of title is always harder because you've always got more pressure, you've always got more expectation, everything's always a bit different when you build up to it. So for her, you know, she's an incredible champion, Annemiek van Vleuten, but to cement that with another Giro d'Italia victory this year would be huge.
Mia Luzak of Canyon SRAM Racing, as we've seen our early starters get off that ramp, and now we're going to see what the state of play is at this point in the time trial. We'll bring you an update on that very, very shortly, but we're seeing the sort of twists and turns as we come out of the town centre onto this flat section before it drags up. What do you make of this course? Because throughout this week already, in the sort of Italian style, there's some quite complicated courses out there.
Yeah, I think the riders will be quite used to that. So most people will have tried to check out the course, if possible, beforehand. It's always a bit easier when it is a course that starts and finishes in the same place, because you can sort of go and ride the loop and then you're back at the start ready to start your warm-up. But obviously this is a point-to-point course, so riders probably will have gone out with their teams either yesterday evening or first thing this morning and had a little look at the course. The main problem with that is that you're not doing that on closed roads, so you can't think about what's going to be the fastest line on each corner, because that's going to be different come the actual race when the roads are closed like they are now. So you can't run on the left as you would be around that sort of bend. So you have to look at it, you have to try and sort of envisage how it will look when you're actually racing the event.
Yeah, because we know that a lot of riders have done very close recce's, but as you say there, as we see Marianne Vos, she's wearing that points classification there. Of course, that goes to the next rider in the classification.
Yeah.
A brilliant week for her. But in terms of recceing these courses, we heard the riders from Canyon SRAM, who had a brilliant opening team time trial, saying that actually when you throw in the heat, the elements on the day, and the actual race pace and the open versus closed roads, it can be very, very different in terms of scenario.
Yeah, definitely. So there's only so much you can really tell from wrecking it. I think getting a good idea of the gradients is important. I've seen a few riders early on road bikes rather than time trial bikes. This rider here, Amy Luzak from Canyon SRAM, obviously opting for the time trial bike position, but a few riders probably seeing the course and thinking, you know what, maybe it's a road bike day today. So sometimes, although you can't recce every corner exactly and practice every line, you can make some of those more basic decisions about what bike am I going to ride? You know, what kit is right? What gearing is right as well? You know, is the setup that you've got on your time trial bike going to be appropriate, or is the road bike better for the gearing options?
So we saw Amy Luzak come in a time of 27:20:21, which puts her into 6th currently in that overall result on the stage, as we've got plenty of riders still out there to go. Marianne Vos, as we're seeing at the moment from CCC Live, and this is a team that would have put a lot of preparation into getting that aero position right. A different element, of course, when you've got that gradient as well.
Yeah, it will still make a difference though. The aerodynamics make more of a difference the faster you're going. So obviously on these sort of gradients, not as much difference as they would make on a real fast course, but it is still important, and being able to put out the power in that position as well. So being able to train in the time trial position, because we're all used to being on road bikes and you can sit up and you can sit on the tops and you sort of really open up that hip angle, and when you're riding uphill that feels great to be sort of sat back in the saddle powering away. But when you're tucked forward like this on a time trial bike, it can feel quite alien climbing like that. So I think if you can practice this course or these sort of climbs in that time trial bike position, you will still get aero gains, but you do need to practice being able to put out power like that as well.
28, 20, 31 for Voss, going into 13th there. And we got a glimpse of Sophie de Voist of Park Hotel Valkenburg. We're back with her now. And she's had a phenomenal Giro Rosa so far, wearing the Queen of the Mountains jersey.
Yeah, well, Park Hotel Valkenburg as a team have had a really good season. Obviously, Lorena Wiebes with her wins in sprint stages and sprint races has been sort of the big news. But they've had quite a lot of riders across the board performing really well. And I think in a team, when you have success, that just sort of inspires everybody else, and everyone thinks, actually, we can do this. Interesting to see she's not using a disc wheel there. Now we've switched the shot, but yeah, she was opting for a spoked rear wheel, which is a little bit lighter, not as aerodynamic, but can be easier to handle sometimes. So some personal preference coming in there for these riders.
Julia van der Veld of Lotto Soudal ladies. I know they were a team closely wrecking in terms of whether they were bringing road bikes out on the opening time trial or the TT position. Of course, she's in the TT position here.
Yeah, logistically, it's a big decision. If you know you're not going to need your time trial bikes, it saves a huge amount of effort having to bring them all the way out to the race and transport them around with you when you're doing a 10-day stage race. So if you know your riders are going to commit to road bikes, yeah, that's one less bike to bring about with you. But obviously, if the time trial bike is faster and a rider wants to ride that, then you want to have that option. So wrecking the course is the best way to do that. Like we said, it's not the same as it is on race day, but you can get a pretty good idea of what bike is going to be the suitable bike to race on.
Sophie de Voist taking 12th there as she finishes this individual time trial from Giro d'Italia. Stage 6 here at the Giro Rosa. And it's been a very interesting few stages so far. A lot of surprises out there as well.
Yeah, some really tight finishes. I think yesterday, obviously being the Queen stage, that was probably the one with the least surprises, in that we were probably all looking towards Annemiek van Vleuten to take the win. And as I said earlier, that doesn't mean the pressure's on her shoulders, doesn't actually make it any easier by any means. But some really good finishes before that. And there'll be a lot of teams coming to this race now thinking, okay, it's looking like the pink jersey is going to go Annemiek van Vleuten's way. You know, it's not decided. We've still got a lot of racing to go. But actually, let's really get in the mix for stage wins. Let's try for everything else, because it's bike racing, anything can happen. And like we've seen some really tight finishes where you're convinced that one person's going to win and actually it's not that person. So racing all the way to the line and taking any opportunity that they can.
Omer Shapira of Canyon SRAM Racing in a different kit today, because she is the Israeli national champion on the road, and of course TT Day we'll see some of the riders who are their national champions in this discipline.
Yes, it was always good for me when I was national time trial champion to have a stage race with a time trial. I'd relish the opportunity to race in that, because you don't get as many opportunities as a time trial national champion to wear your kit. You can of course go out training in it if you want to, but it really is nice to pin a number on race day in your national champion stripes. So for the girls that are road race national champions today, they're back in their normal team colours. But for the others that have got those time trial national champion jerseys, it's quite special to be able to put that on. And so soon since the nationals as well, with that just being just over a week ago for most people, it's probably quite exciting for some riders.
It certainly is, and I think that is something that for a lot of riders that have just taken their such prestigious national jerseys, you must have to remind yourself actually when you've just taken it and you're going into the rest of the season with it, that it is actually on your shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is prestigious, and it is. So having it, like I said before, individual time trials, you don't get as many of them. You do many more days of road racing than you do of time trialing. So for a lot of riders, this might be an easier day of a stage race, but for a lot of other riders, it's quite a special day.
With the rider Cortazar of Movistar here. Another team that have had an interesting and very animated season so far, as we see Shapira finish 27, 28, 87, and that puts her into 9th in those standings. Just seeing her getting out absolutely everything out to the line there. In terms of the focus, the measuring, the effort, and what you're really looking at out on the road, how did you sort of find that focus? What were you really looking at?
Yeah, so a lot of riders will use a different sort of way of racing a time trial. So a lot of riders nowadays will use power, and they'll look at their average power for the ride, and they'll sort of know roughly what they can average for, say, half an hour or 20 minutes, and try and average that sort of power for the duration. Back in my day, which wasn't that long ago, but I never used to race with power in time trials. So I used to have on my bike computer, I had my heart rate data, my speed, my cadence, and obviously the time that I'd taken, the actual rolling time. But I tended to focus on the speed, which sounds quite basic, but my theory was that the winner of the time trial isn't the person with the highest heart rate or the highest power output, it's the person that goes the fastest over the distance. So nowadays not many people will do that, they'll look at the power outputs, but my theory was look how fast I'm going and try and go a bit faster. And it's quite simple and doesn't always work depending on the course. But it was a nice little thing to look at and try and just eke a little bit more out yourself. If you can see you're doing 40k an hour, try and get to 41 or try and get to 42. And that was the way I used to time trial, to just try and get a little bit more speed in there.
So Marina Cortazar from Movistar across the line there, and we're back on the road with Demi Vollering here of Park Hotel Valkenburg. Very, very smooth ride from Vollering as expected. And I guess when we're looking at a profile like this, it's a little bit different, because you said there about go faster and then go faster than that again. But when you're looking at a technical course, a flat, faster course perhaps, there are so many variables. But this one's interesting in the respect of it just ramping up.
Yeah, so in terms of the technical side and corners and things, that again can be quite a good one for looking at your speed and thinking, don't lose too much speed on this corner, and try and look at the sort of speed as you're exiting it and thinking, how much have I lost there? I try not to lose too much. Going uphill is obviously a difficult one to look at your speed, and the power is quite a good way of measuring your effort, especially if you sort of know what you can average. But also, it can still be good because you can still sort of eke a little bit more out yourself if you think, I can just try and get an extra K an hour quicker here, and that is going to save me a few seconds.
Fantastic finish for Vollering there. Really solid ride from the Park Hotel Valkenburg rider. And we are with Soraya Paladin of Ale Cipollini. A very, very active Giro Rosa for them. There's some brilliant key moves, a bit of disappointment for them with a stage start finish a couple of days ago.
Yeah, so Paladin was 4th yesterday, if I remember correctly. So climbing really well. So this could be a good chance for her to sort of consolidate her GC position, or try and sort of get up the GC rankings a little bit. But she has been riding really well, and like you say, her team have been riding really well, and it's about sort of taking those opportunities when you can.
It certainly is. It was a very close finish yesterday between her and Kasia Niewiadoma, who of course had the pink jersey on her shoulders coming into that stage finish and fought every step of the way. But it was Soraya Paladin that had a bit of a photo finish there with Niewiadoma to take that 3rd position. Brilliant fight to the line from them, and brilliant showing from Ale Cipollini on the whole in this race. Another team, of course, that had a brilliant day in the saddle yesterday was WNT Rota, and we're on the road with them now.
Yeah, it's been interesting watching this team race, watch this team attack the different stages and how they've sort of measured their effort in that sense. Here's Soraya Paladin finishing 28.02 for her, so a respectable time.
San Sebastian Gonzalez of Team WNT out on the road in the TT position.
Yeah, so she's opting for the full aero kit here, time trial bike, deep section front wheel, disc wheel. So we've seen a variety of setups. I've seen quite a lot of people riding a time trial bike but with normal spoked wheels, which aren't as aero but are lighter. So they've gone for the sort of the weight in that aspect, but she's gone for the full aero kit, as has this rider here, so everything aero.
Cecily Uttrup Ludwig of Bigla. A brilliant climber. It's always exciting to watch her when we see these stages ramp up. She'll be looking for a solid day today as the GC leader of Bigla.
Yes, still a relatively young rider, she is, but races so passionately, and I think she's someone that isn't scared of reputations and is willing to attack and willing to get involved. And a real stand-up performance for her was La Course last year in France, where she was racing with Annemiek van Vleuten and Anna van der Breggen, and she came off third, but the interview that she gave after that really sort of got a lot of people talking about women's cycling in general, just hearing the sort of passion in her voice and how emotional she was at that finish. So it is always exciting to watch her race, because like I say, not afraid of reputations, willing to get stuck in and always give it a good go.
So Gonzalez of WNT Rotor going into 14th as she crossed the line there. And we are back with Uttrup Ludwig of Bigla. And a lot of people will just absolutely revel in the opportunity to hear a post-race interview with this rider, because for anyone that hasn't, she's, as you say, so important for the sport, a brilliant personality on and off the bike.
Definitely, me included there. I always enjoy an interview from her, and I think that's sort of true across the peloton, male and female. She is very entertaining, very passionate, always got some interesting things to say, and sort of her analysis from within the race, the way she talks and sort of describes the everything unfolding, you sort of feel like you were part of it, and you feel like, you know, you really are racing it with her, or you know, going through that with her. So always a pleasure to listen to her post-race.
Juliette Lebu of Team Sunweb having a fantastic Giro Rosa Ecrea. She is in that white skin suit, of course, because she leads the young rider competition, as she has done over the last few stages. So once again, she had a solid day in the saddle yesterday, a brilliant one to watch, and she'll be looking to just really cement that with a good, solid individual time trial today. And it is brilliant to see so many of the young riders coming through. As talk about young riders, we see Cecilia Uttrup Ludwig, and she goes into 10th position, 27:28:79 for her. And it's all about looking across each and every stage, isn't it, at a long race, indeed the longest on the Women's World Tour calendar, and actually just looking at where those gains can be made, and presumably days where you just have to make sure you're recovering and looking across the race as a whole.
Yes, there will be riders racing today that are thinking, I need to sort of survive this, I need to stay within the time limit but not spend too much energy. But even for everyone that is racing this full gas, because it is a shorter race, because we're racing for less than half an hour here, that helps so much with things like your hydration and your nutrition. When you're racing for 3 hours plus in the heat, it's so hard to stay well hydrated. So I think everyone is quite thankful of a time trial mid-race as a day where you just not on your bike quite as much, and you can just feed and fuel better. Obviously, these girls are pros and they will be feeding and, you know, drinking and fueling well on the bike, but having a time trial stage just sort of allow the body to recover in other ways as well, even if you are still racing absolutely full gas.
Juliette Lebu lunged to the line there, and she goes in to the current race lead with a time of 26:25 there. That was a stunning ride yet again from her. She is just in absolutely phenomenal form.
That was a stunning ride. So she was sitting in 10th place overall coming into today, but 26:25, she's leapfrogged a lot of people there who have already finished, and it'll be interesting how long that time stands for, because that was really, really impressive, and we might see some people beating that, but for such a young rider as well, that was a super impressive time. So she'll be sat in the hot seat now and sort of eagerly awaiting the last few riders to finish and see how they go on.
And we saw just then Erica Magnaldi of WNT Rotor, and yeah, I mean, she was a key animator on yesterday's Queen stage. And we see Katie Hall now of Bowles Dolman Cycling, another rider that is just a joy to watch when these hills really come into play.
Yeah, so these riders are brilliant climbers, probably have all really relished the opportunity for this Giro d'Italia, this Giro Rosa, because it is so hilly, as it always is. Yesterday being the Queen stage was obviously quite spectacular, and something that a lot of these riders will have been thinking about in training coming into this. And having this time trial as well, being so hilly, is going to play into the hands of these riders. So it's really going to sort of cement the GC positions for these sort of people. See Katie Hall, they're opting for the spoked wheels rather than disc wheels, so going for a little bit of weight saving there.
And Magnaldi goes in to third. And it was great to see her put such a big move in on the Queen stage as we were on that final ascent, wasn't it? Because, you know, again, another young rider not afraid to just really go for it, knowing, you know, just how strong her rivals are, but making sure she keeps it very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's very brave to do on a stage race as well. On a one-day race, you can really leave it all out there on the roads, give it absolutely everything, attack, and know that it's all going to be over in, you know, not very long. But in a halfway through a stage race, it's brave to make those sort of moves, because in the back of your mind, you're thinking about your recovery for the next day. You're thinking about however many more days of racing you've got. You're thinking about, how much am I suffering? Am I going to be able to pull this off? But it is really good to see young riders not afraid of reputation and race each day hard like that.
Yeah, we were with Katie Hall of Boels Dolmans a moment ago, the teammate of Anna van der Breggen. And we are now with Elisa Longo Borghini of Trek Segafredo, who's been interesting as ever in her post-race interviews, saying that the humans are having the race behind Anna van der Breggen, as everyone predicted would... Annemiek van Vleuten. I'm too excited here, Joanne. I'm getting my words out. But yeah, she was just sort of talking about that race being on behind for perhaps second and third on that podium. But you said it, anything can happen. This is a long, long race.
Yeah, it can. And it is cycling. Things do happen. We've seen at other races, people being in the race lead, and unfortunate things happening, crashes, mechanicals, all sorts. So riders need to race each day, knowing that there's still all to play for. And I think once your head goes and you think, oh, this is not worth it now, that can, you know, your mentality's gone then. So you need to race each day, full gas, still believing in yourself.
And a brilliant ride for Katie Hall. Sees her go into second place currently. Of course, we've still got riders out on the road, and one of those riders still out there on her individual time trial is Longo Borghini, and she leads the Best Italian competition at the moment. I know that's been really delightful for her to pull on every day in front of so many fans here, and now it's Lucinda Brandt of Team Sunweb who is in fine form coming in. We've talked about the fact that we've got some riders who have had a very heavy race programme, others that have perhaps really targeted this year's Giro, but just such a strong field this year.
Yeah, really strong field. So in previous years, I'd say in women's cycling, you sort of raced everything. Whether you were a climber or not, you found yourself racing in Belgium, you found yourself racing in Holland, and you sort of raced the full season. No matter what. But now teams are allowing riders to specialise much more. We see a lot of riders using altitude training, which is quite a luxury to be able to do, because it means missing a sort of chunk of the racing season to go off and do that sort of altitude training camp. Not just put in the training, but also then allow the subsequent recovery from it as well. So it does sort of take you out for a bit of time. But more and more riders are able to do that, meaning we're getting more specialists for these sort of events.
And Elisa Longo Borghini takes first on the road. She is currently leading this individual time trial from Giro to Telio on stage 6 here at the Giro. So she goes into first position, so she will now take that hot seat.
So Elisa Longo Borghini opting for a full aero kit there, disc wheel, deep section front wheel, time trial bike, and that paying off hugely, you know, fantastic time. I think about 6 seconds quicker than Juliette Labouste, who had been leading up until that point. So fantastic ride for her, and you know, she has been climbing well, but I think she was 7th overall coming into this stage, but now leading the time trial, that's fantastic.
And we are on the road now with Anna van der Breggen of Boels Dolmans cycling team. And it's always interesting to come into these races and just look at that rivalry between Van Vleuten and herself, because there's been many, many close fought battles over the years.
There has been, and it's been ever so interesting. And obviously at the World Championships, they're teammates, both riding from the Netherlands. One won the time trial, one won the road race. The rest of the season, they're on opposite teams. So it is fascinating. And obviously so far this race, Annemiek van Vleuten looking clearly very strong, but never right off the world champion here. Anna van der Breggen always fights very hard. So it'd be interesting in this time trial if she can get some time back overall, sitting in 5th overall coming into this. So a bit of time needs to be gained by her. Interesting, all the Boels riders that I've seen so far haven't been riding any disc wheels. They've obviously all gone for that weight gain there.
And what does she do? Well, Lucinda Brandt goes into second position, 26:21:57 there. Just once again, grit of the teeth and a throw of the bike as she crosses that line, just making sure, because everything. I know it's a cliche, but every second really, really does count here.
It does. Lucinda Brand having a brilliant Giro, second yesterday, climbing really, really well. Now, just getting in between Alyssa Longo-Borghini and Juliette Labouche in this time trial. So, you know, absolutely fantastic ride there for the Sunweb rider. And with just a couple more, you know, few more big names on the road still to come. But, yeah, absolutely fantastic time trial.
Anna van der Breggen in contention for that overall GC, albeit with some pretty significant time gaps, you know, between some of our key riders after yesterday on that big summit finish. We always expected that to happen, and indeed it did when Van Vleuten chose her time to make that big attack. But we are here with Van der Breggen, who of course has won this race overall twice before and is just such a big name to watch in this race.
She is a big name to watch. Anyone that is, you know, is a world champion, you always need to look out for them. I think she's pretty much won every single bike race there is on the calendar. You know, between the likes of her and Vos, you know, what a palmares the Dutch women have. And obviously this race, we're probably looking between Annemiek van Vleuten and Anna van der Breggen for the overall. And I'd love to see that get close in the next few days. And I'd love to see Anna van der Breggen sort of really almost gain some form during this race. And I'd love to see her challenge Annemiek in the next few days.
And this is Amanda Spratt of Mitchelton Scott. She is in the green today. And what I think is always astonishing is some of these sort of bigger teams, the leading teams, having the options that they do and the strength and depth that they do, because of course her teammate Annemiek van Vleuten leading the race overall, but last year when Annemiek obviously took the overall GC, it was Amanda Spratt that was actually third on that podium. So not only working as teammates, but securing the GC for two of the riders as well. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really nice to see how Amanda Spratt has developed over the last few years. She's spent many years working for Emma Johansson when she was part of this team as the team leader, and now finding herself working for Annemiek van Vleuten quite a lot. But still, like you say, getting some really impressive results for herself, and you know, a really outstanding rider, brilliant climber. She's a year older than me, so when I started racing, she was already quite an established junior rider. So it's brilliant to see her getting these results for herself.
And Anna van der Breggen, Bo Stolmans takes the lead. She will now take to the hot seat here on this 6th stage. A brilliant ride.
Wow, that was a huge gap she's taken over Alyssa Longo-Borghini there. So 25.24 for Anna van der Breggen. Alyssa Longo-Borghini's previous best time was 26.19. So the best part of a minute there she's taken out of Longo-Borghini. That was a really impressive ride by van der Breggen.
Wow. Amanda Spratt, Mitchelton Scott. Just such a compact rider. It's really interesting because we can always spot her in the peloton and out on a TT because, yeah, she's got such a distinctive riding style. So smooth.
Absolutely. And always, like you say, races so hard for her teammates as well. And it's nice to see her in a jersey as well, because obviously Annemiek is holding multiple jerseys, but here Amanda Spratt is in the green Queen of the Mountains.
And of course, that's something else we're looking at over the course of the 10 stages, isn't it? Is those individual classifications as well for the likes of the points, the Queen of the Mountains. And these stage wins and classifications mean so much to the teams. And it's Ashley Monmouth-Patio of CCC Live. What a climber she is, you know. I've been really excited to see her when we've got to these sort of more latter stages and the real big mountains.
Yeah, she's a rider that, you know, she is really a climber. She loves the big hilly days. She loves the fact that there's more and more women's races going up such iconic climbs. She sort of really relishes those opportunities. So I always enjoy watching her race. She was third on GC coming into this today, so having a really good Giro so far. We obviously see her working for Marianne Vos a lot, it's quite an interesting combination having the two of them. But it seems to work really well, and they seem to be quite a close-knit team, and obviously a couple of stage wins already for Vos this week, so going nicely.
Yeah, it certainly is going nicely. It's worked very, very well in terms of us seeing Vos go for those stage wins. And actually, I just can't talk enough about the conviction she had to still go for Kennedy when, of course, we all thought that victory was sealed. But just showing when she's at her best, the speed at which she jumps on people is just devastating.
Yeah, her acceleration is just incredible. And to follow an attack by her is near impossible.
Amanda Spratt going into 6th position on the road, 26:40.84. Teammate of our race leader, Annemiek van Vleuten. And we rejoin Ashley Molman-Passio from CCC Live. And we are seeing constant development still in aero gains, aren't we? It seems to me that people are focusing on it perhaps more than ever.
Yeah, definitely. So I think something that's big at the moment is the overshoes or the socks, using an aerodynamic material there, which is faster than skin. So, you know, that's why we've seen such long socks here. Not everyone outside of the cycling world perhaps thinks it's the most fashionable, but definitely as a cyclist, you want all the aero gauge you can get. So, you know, you get the socks or the overshoes on. There's a skin suit, there's a helmet. Even the gloves that she's wearing here will be aerodynamic gloves designed to still have the grip that she needs, but have their air flowing over them nicely. So there's a lot of work and development that goes into that side of things, and it's brilliant for the sort of the cycling industry as a whole to have that sort of level of development of equipment, and it's brilliant for these women to be able to make the most of that.
Kasia Niewiadoma Canyon Schramm, the rider we of course saw in the Malia Rosa from the beginning of the race until it switched shoulders to Van Vleuten yesterday. Again, a rider that can really do it all. We see her on those punchy stages. We see her when the mountains really kick up. And of course, she can time trial very, very well.
Yeah, so obviously winning the team time trial day one. Her team is the current world champions for the team time trial. So it was brilliant to see them take that victory. But for her, she's someone that, again, always attacks, always is active in races and animates, and sometimes, you know, it doesn't always pay off, but sometimes it does, and I do always enjoy watching her race.
Yeah, very, very passionate rider, and again, you get a sense of that chatting to her off the bike, that she sort of shows her personality through in both respects there, and I think, yeah, it was interesting to see them with such a brilliant display on day one in the team time trial, of course setting the scene to come really for the next few days with her in the pink. But they are actually the last ever trade team champions, because that's removed now. And we've just seen Ashley Molman-Passio go over the line in 24th position. Probably, perhaps not what we might have expected for her on a gradient like this.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether there was any mechanical issues or anything during that ride fair. We haven't seen anything on this coverage, but obviously we've not seen the full ride, so the time doesn't always paint an accurate picture of exactly what's happened there. So perhaps not her best day there. She did have good day yesterday, was sitting in 3rd overall coming into this time trial, so we'll have to see how the GC shakes up after today.
Yeah, we will continue to bring you updates on that throughout today's coverage. And we're back with Niewiadoma. And as I was just saying, because the trade team sort of world championship title has been removed now, they are sort of reigning and then the last to take that crown.
Yeah, so I think we had that for 7 years. I think 2012 was the first time that the team time trial came back into the Road World Championships, and it was for trade teams. Personally, I thought it was brilliant. I rode it once when I rode for Wiggle Honda. I'm now retired, but I think it was a good opportunity for a lot of the companies that invest heavily in sort of developing all those aero gauges to have that sort of showcase at the World Championships.
And it is Annemiek van Vleuten of Mitchelton Scott now, our race defending champion, who now wears the pink skin suit, the Malia Rosa, which indicates the race lead. We said before she has some options on jerseys as she's leading many of those classifications, including the points and the Queen of the Mountains, and you can see the championship bands there as well.
Yeah, glad to see she's got the rainbow stripes on the socks, her forks, her helmet. So very much showing everyone that she is the current world champion, which is brilliant. I think all too often it's easy not to celebrate these things, but look at that bike, sparkly, beautiful. So yeah, showing everyone she's the current world champion, but today in the pink leader's jersey, the Giro Rosa.
We were sort of hoping for socks, weren't we? We
yes.
anticipated the bands.
I was hoping for some stripy socks, absolutely. So yeah, glad to see that. But yeah, what a beautiful bike as well. It
is stunning. And in terms of the sock height, not so much of a problem for Townline's view on the track, but
yeah,
a little bit more so on the road.
Oh yes, the cycling tan line's very distinctive, but I don't mind too much. It was suggested to me once sunbathing in leg warmers would help sort of solve that problem. Not something I've tried personally.
I attempted it once, didn't last long.
Oh.
So today's individual time trial, 12.1 kilometres from Giro to Telio, and one with another significant gradient, looking like it sort of averages out about 5%, with of course some steeper sections, as we're actually seeing now on some of these turns where it really bites.
So Annemiek van Vleuten gone for the full aero kit here, time trial bike, disc wheel at the rear, front deep section wheel, but riding quite a lot of this not in the time trial bar, so getting in and out of that tri-bar position depending on different aspects of the course. But I mean, she's looking fast so far, so it'd be interesting to see what her time will be at the end, what sort of time gap we see to other riders. With this being a race that's, you know, less than half an hour long, there's not as much opportunity to take as much time out of people as you do on sort of, you know, a big road stage perhaps, but looking very strong.
Looking very strong as ever. We of course saw her in a familiar sight out on her own on a solo attack yesterday, and just brilliant to watch her yet again putting in such a solid ride as we predicted. But yeah, a lot of pressure on her as defending champion, and great to see her just delivering out there with so much dominance. But you can just see the focus, and she's put in so much preparation for this race very specifically. You mentioned altitude training before. Yeah. How difficult is it to time that in the season? I guess you get to really know what sort of time you need to allow between that block and the race day.
Yeah, so you need to spend enough time at altitude to first of all be able to adjust to then train effectively, because if you just go straight up there, you'll struggle to train effectively. So that means you're sort of gaining in one area but losing in another. So you need to be up there long enough to be able to adapt and then train. But you also need to allow time to then recover after your altitude block of training, but not too much time that you sort of lose the gains from it. So someone like Annemiek is very experienced. She'll know her body. She'll know when sort of works best for her. And she's got the flexibility within her team to be able to time that and put that into her season. Which not everyone has that amount of flexibility from their team. But, you know, you get to the sort of standard that she is, you know, you become world champion, you do get a bit more wiggle room in that sense. So she has put in all this preparation, and like you said, we know how well she's prepared, but that sort of puts almost more pressure on your own shoulders, not obviously from other people as well talking about it, but for you, you know that you've based your season or your first half of your season around this. You've not raced other races specifically to prepare for this, that if that doesn't go well, you know, you've really put all your eggs in one basket, and we can now see her catching the rider ahead of her.
Yeah, and that is just a sign of the amount of time that she is putting into her rivals here. And we were saying before, you know, we know she's so prepared because she's very open about the preparation she's put in. And it's interesting to see the differences there in terms of what people actually will say and how much they keep their cards close to their chest. But it is in fact Kasia Niewiadoma that Van Vleuten has now caught and is powering past.
So these were 2-minute gaps before this coming to this stage as they started. So wow, she's made that catch.
And it is Annemiek van Vleuten, the time of 24:31.87, who takes the stage here on stage 6 of the Giro Rosa. What a stunning effort, and you can just see what that's taken out of her.
And what a way to finish it, by catching your 2-minute girl right on the line as well. That was a real sort of treat for the crowd to see her there. Just pip Kasia Niewiadoma on the line, who had a 2-minute head start there. So shows how incredibly fast Annemiek van Vleuten was. And she would have been going up those last sort of few hundred metres with her in sight, thinking, I just want to be able to get her. And that really would have eked a little bit more speed out of her.
Oh, you can just see what this took.
Not able to speak at the moment, but absolutely huge effort there by the current world champion. And 52 seconds gap she's won by.
52 seconds there to second place Anna van der Breggen, and 1:48 to Elisa Longo Borghini, and it was Lucinda Brandt behind in fourth there. And Juliette Lebeau, again, a brilliant ride for the young rider in that white jersey classification. And what's that done to the general classification? Well, Annemiek van Vleuten now leads 4 minutes 16 to Kasia Niewiadoma, and same time to Van der Breggen there, who now sits in third in that GC. I was pausing there to see if we'd get a word, and here it is now.
Also training with the guys and went on altitude and super optimal prepared with my team. And I think every year when I target Giro, 2017 for the first time, yeah, I learn also, and I try to take it to the next year. So that's why I maybe after 2 years of targeting, I'm become an alien a little bit.
So what about the next 4 days? What do you expect from your rivals?
I take it day by day. So it's not over till Sunday, and I take it day by day. I need to be very focused, and I also know I recon the stages. I know what's coming up, and it's not easy. So especially the next 3 days. So it's just we take it day by day and keep focused. But it's good. My other teammates, Amanda Spet is very strong. Lucy Kenny is really strong uphill. So it's very good to have 3 strong rides uphill, and also have 3 engines on the flat. So I'm confident we can do this.
Confident, but still focused on this very long stage race. As Annemiek van Vleuten of Mitchelton Scott takes the podium after another stunning stage victory on stage 6 here at the Giro Rosa. Displaying the beautiful World Championship bands.
And she was buzzing after that win as well, and you could almost sort of feel that enthusiasm was infectious. She was talking about her teammates and how strong they are, and almost like relishing the chance to keep racing the rest of this Giro, talking about how she's got 3 strong engines on the flat and 3 strong climbers in their team. So she just seems to be excited and loving it at the moment, lapping it up.
And Annemiek van Vleuten pulls on the Maglia Rosa, the pink leader's jersey of this general classification here at the Giro Rosa Recrea. Understandably, brilliant spirits after another solid day out there. And indeed, pulling on that points jersey. Juliette Lebeau of Team Sunweb once again takes the white jersey, which indicates that she leads that young rider classification here at the Giro Rosa.
Brilliant, brilliant 5th place for her today. Absolutely stunning ride.
And pulling on the green jersey, which indicates that she leads the Queen of the Mountain competition as well, Annemiek van Vleuten, Mitchelton Scott. Lisa Longo Borghini of Trek Segafredo. A good day for her on this individual time trial, and she is the best Italian, as she has been each and every day over the opening stages of this year's Giro Rosa. Just having a look back at our early riders coming off the start ramp as we started this stage 6 from Giro to Telio, 12.1 kilometres in its entirety, and an important day in this overall battle. And it was interesting to hear Annemiek van Vleuten talking in the interview there about just how much she learns every year. And when she said, a little bit of a reference to the word alien there, for anyone that missed the interview with Aliso Longo Borghini after yesterday's stage, she was referring to the superhuman traits of Van Vleuten when she goes on her attack and the time gaps that she put in, as we see Longo Borghini now. And yeah, that was a real sort of term of respect of what she can do to the race when she goes. But Van Vleuten responding to that there, saying, you know, it's the preparation and it's the learning.
Yeah, and I always say you can't buy experience. Like you can't buy going to a few Giro Rosas and racing them. And, you know, as you get more years of experience racing your bike, you do learn every time. And it's difficult to even pass on a lot of that advice because a lot of it's so individual about you and your body and how you respond to the training that you do. So she's learned a lot about herself. She knows how to prepare, and now it really is paying dividends for her career.
We're just Replaying that moment that Annemiek van Vleuten caught Kasia Niewiadoma of Canyon SRAM as they just crossed that line, indicating, of course, that she had closed that entire gap that they started with at the beginning of the time trial, and securing the stage 6 victory, and indeed just cementing her lead in the general classification. Confirmation of that now, Annemiek van Vleuten, who sits at the top of that GC, followed by Kasia Niewiadoma and Anna van der Breggen. Well, no huge surprises there in terms of that top spot. After we saw on stage 5, we did predict perhaps seeing that level of time gap.
Yeah, that 53 seconds over Anna van der Breggen for Annemiek van Vleuten. It is a huge gap in a 12-kilometre time trial. So, stunning performance again, still with the pressure on her shoulders, still with everyone expecting these sort of victories. And to catch Kasia Niewiadoma on the line for 2 minutes, it's rare in a time trial to be able to catch someone for 2 minutes, and especially someone, you know, as strong as Kasia Niewiadoma. So, yeah, a stunning ride again by Annemiek van Vleuten.
It certainly was. And looking at things that perhaps did surprise you, were there any rides there that really stood out for you?
I think Anna van der Breggen's done really well to sort of leapfrog herself up the GC. So I think now she's in joint second place with Kasia Niewiadoma. So about 4.25 minutes down. So it's quite a big time gap, but really, really tight there for second and third on the podium. So I think that's going to be one of the interesting battles going forwards. But in terms of surprise, not a huge surprise, but a standout performance probably Juliette Labousse for Team Sunweb. So she's in the white Young Riders jersey, but for her to take 5th place overall, to be leading it for quite a while after she finished it, that is amazing for such a young rider. So really, really impressed by her ride there.
Yeah, it was really, really impressive. She's had a great Giro so far this year, as has Elisa Longo-Borghini. We caught up with her and some of the other riders at the end of stage 6.
I was feeling very good uphill, and I could really do my pace. I did some training with my TT bike uphill because I knew that there was this kind of TT at the Giro. So I really need to thank my coach Paolo Slongo, the team, Trek Segafredo, and Fiamme Oro, which is the sport department of the police in Italy, and all my teammates, because they really supported me very well until now.
Yeah, it was super, super hard. Really, I really did the best I could. When I arrived, I had 180 average BPM. So it was really, really hard. In the steep part I could push good watts, and I think I did in that part a good time, but I knew already before when the street was flat I could not high enough my speed. I'm not a specialist of a time trial, but still I think I expected to do worse, I have to say. So I'm happy, and I think that maybe I can gain some second in the next stages.
How was it, Janneke?
It was heavy. Yeah, but yeah, always heavy to do a time trial. But I think in the end was good. Yeah, I'm happy with the time.
And of course, we have stage 7 lying ahead tomorrow, a very different stage profile. What do you make of it in terms of that GC battle, especially second and third behind?
There's a lot of punchy climbs tomorrow, so 3 categorised climbs, but many more climbs in the race as a whole. So I think we'll see a lot of riders probably taking the chance to attack. You know, we've had the Queen stage, we've had the time trial, which was predominantly uphill. So I think a lot of riders psychologically, once they've got over those hurdles, will now be thinking, well, it's all to play for. Annemiek van Vleuten's got such a huge gap. Her team can afford to probably let breaks go and not have to control it too much, really. You know, she can follow her biggest rivals, but other than that, there might be a bit more freedom for other riders to really attack and animate things. And any team that hasn't had a stage win or hasn't, you know, got a jersey so far, will want to use the opportunity to perhaps go for those Queen of the Mountain points or go for stage victory.
Joanna, thank you so much for joining me today, and we will be back at the same time tomorrow with all the action from Stage 7. Join us then. Bye bye.